Hello, it is Space Viper, and welcome to the first episode of Film News. Now, we have a decent amount of news to get into. Now, the first bit of news we have comes from Discussing Film, who is where I am getting lots of this news from. And we learned that Happy Gilmore 2 is in the works, which I think is really cool. I really like the first Happy Gilmore movie. It is such a great and iconic comedy, so hopefully this one lives up to it. The next bit of news we have also comes from Discussing Film. This is about the next Pirates of the Caribbean movie, which Pirates of the Caribbean producer Jerry Bruckheimer confirms that the sixth movie will be a reboot and not a sequel to the Johnny Depp-led movies, which is an interesting approach to go. It makes sense since there's still some controversy around Johnny Depp, and it makes sense to want to move forward in a new direction, since having Johnny Depp doesn't mean the movie is good or a success, as we have seen in the fourth and fifth installments. So this makes sense to me, and the quote is, "We're going to reboot Pirates so that it is easier to put together because you don't have to wait for certain actors." That all makes sense to me. Just seems like the best step to take. Now the next one is about James Bond. Aaron Taylor Johnson has officially been offered the role of James Bond, taking over from Daniel Craig, according to The Sun. He's expected to sign in the next few days. Now, this is a few days old, so since then he has signed. Now, he isn't a completely unknown actor to most people, as he has been in some pretty bigger profile movies like Avengers, Age of Ultron, and the Kick-A movies, to name a couple, so makes sense. I'm really excited to see where they go with that. And then this one I'm more excited for. Christopher Nolan is signed on to direct this upcoming Bond movie starring Aaron Taylor Johnson. I love Christopher Nolan. He's top of his game. The fact that he's signed onto a Bond movie is incredible, especially since he gets a lot of inspiration from the Bond movies, so I think that's just so cool. Now, next one is about Beyond the Spider-Verse. According to Discussing Film, Beyond the Spider-Verse will release on July 19th, 2024, which is kind of unexpected since it seems like it was indefinitely delayed to 2025 or 2026. So that's kind of crazy. This should mean that a trailer should drop soon enough. So that's all really exciting stuff. Now, one thing that's not as good news to some is that Bob Iger cancels many Disney animated movies. This comes from Discussing Film. These include Toy Story 5 and Frozen 3. However, Inside Out 2 and Moana 2 will still release. And the rationale for this is we are moving away from creating sequels that don't have a strong idea first, which makes sense, kind of the quality over quantity type thing, and also brings to the fact that they don't want to just milk franchises for the sake of milking them. I think that's a big step in the right direction for Disney. Now, for anyone excited for Toy Story 5 and Frozen 3, it just kind of makes sense that they canceled those. Now, Toy Story 3 concluded all of Andy's stuff, and it made Toy Story 4 feel unnecessary, and I wasn't a big fan of that one. And that one closed up Woody, so I don't really know where they would go from there without undoing one of the endings. So, makes sense there. Frozen 3 is one that I think there could be story potential, but if they don't have anything, then it would make sense to shelf it quietly, but I don't think they should full-on cancel it, so I think that one's kind of strange. Now, Inside Out 2 is already done, so even if they did want to cancel it, I think it's too late. And I think the story potential is already pretty good for that one, and there's a lot of hype behind it, so good that they aren't pulling a Batgirl on that one. And then Moana 2 originally started as a Disney Plus show and moved into a movie. I feel like that they did that for story reasons and realized, oh wait, let's not turn all the interesting movie ideas into shows. Let's turn the things that were shows into movies, which they should have been doing all along, like with Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Obi-Wan Kenobi. So glad that that's still happening. Now, no word on Zootopia 2, which is a little bit of a weird one. And with Marvel and Star Wars and their whole thing, they haven't really said anything else about the other ones, so I bet you that will come soon, and we'll hear about the rest of it. Now, next one is a little bit of a weird one. Venom: The Last Dance, which is Venom 3, will reportedly feature Jared Leto as Morbius and Michael Keaton as Vulture, both in minor roles. This doesn't seem like a good idea. The Venom movies are your only success. Why bring Morbius into those? Michael Keaton is great as Vulture, but not even he knows why he was in Morbius. So I feel like this is a very stupid idea, just another Sony being Sony idea. And I think that's also part of the idea why Spider-Verse is coming out this year instead of being delayed a couple years. Sony just wants to get things going. So kind of classic Sony there. And then the last one, I'm actually really excited for this one. Also from Discussing Film, DC Studios is putting into production The Dark Knight Legacy. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is set to return. Holy crap. Christopher Nolan will not be returning as director. That is okay. He's already doing a Bond one. So, yeah. And they are aiming for a 2027 release date. Now, the big glaring problem with this, although I love that they're doing this, they should have done this a while ago, glad they're doing it, but the Batman Part 2 comes out in 2026, which is already Elseworld and not made part of the new DCU. And then we have Batman Brave and the Bold, which is a more Bat Family focused one. If they're doing this, it doesn't really make sense. And some people are saying they want the Dark Knight trilogy to be left, and they don't really like this idea. So we'll have to see what happens with this one. I am excited, but it also doesn't make a super lot of sense. And that is all of the major news I have heard about recently. Thank you so much for watching the first episode of Film News. And before you leave, make sure to check today's date.